The Eternal Father, A Vampire's Love. Chapter 1, The Cry in the Night. The moon was full, casting its pale light over the dense forest. Vincent walked silently, his footsteps making no sound on the damp earth. He had roamed these woods for centuries, his immortal life filled with loneliness and endless nights of quiet. But this night was different. A faint cry pierced the stillness. It was weak, fragile, and unmistakably human. Vincent stopped, his sharp senses honing in on the source of the sound. He followed the cry, his long coat brushing against the leaves as he moved. In a small clearing, he found a bundle lying on the ground, a baby wrapped in a tattered blanket. The child's face was red from crying, tiny fists waving in the cold night air. Vincent hesitated. He had no place in the world of mortals, no reason to interfere. But something in the child's eyes, wide and innocent, stirred a long-forgotten feeling within him. Gently, he picked up the baby, cradling it in his arms. "You'll be safe now," he whispered, his voice soft and soothing. The baby stopped crying, as if sensing the promise in his words. Chapter 2, A Father's Love. Over the years, Vincent cared for the child, whom he named Samuel. Despite his vampiric nature, Vincent devoted himself to providing Samuel with a normal life. He built a home at the edge of a quiet village, where no one questioned his reclusive nature. He avoided the sunlight and the townsfolk, focusing solely on Samuel's happiness. Samuel grew quickly, a bright and curious boy. Vincent watched him with a quiet pride, marveling at the boy's energy and laughter. At night, he would sit by Samuel's bed, reading him stories and tucking him in with a kiss on the forehead. Though Vincent avoided mirrors, he could see himself in Samuel's smile. The boy became his purpose, his reason to continue in a world where he felt so out of place. Chapter 3, Growing Pains. As Samuel grew older, he began to ask questions. "Why don't you ever come into town, Father? Why don't you age like other parents?" Vincent always evaded the truth, afraid of how Samuel would react. "I'm different," Vincent would say simply. "But it doesn't change how much I love you." Samuel accepted these answers, for he loved his father deeply. Vincent attended every milestone in Samuel's life, his first day of school, his graduation, his wedding. Each moment brought Vincent joy, but also a bittersweet ache. He knew their time together was limited. While Samuel aged, Vincent remained the same. The lines on Samuel's face deepened, his hair turned grey, and his steps grew slower. Vincent, however, stayed frozen in time, a silent observer to the fleeting life of his son. Chapter 4, The Final Goodbye. One night, Vincent sat by Samuel's bedside. The room was dimly lit, the air heavy with the scent of lavender. Samuel, now an old man, lay weak and frail, his breath shallow. "Father," Samuel said, his voice barely a whisper. "You've always been there for me. You gave me a life full of love. I just wish I could have done the same for you." Vincent shook his head, his cold hand gently holding Samuel's. "You've given me more than you know, my son. You gave me purpose. You gave me love. That is enough." Tears streamed down Vincent's face as he watched Samuel take his final breath. The room grew silent, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. He stayed by Samuel's side, holding his hand until the first light of dawn crept through the curtains. Chapter 5, The Eternal Grief. Vincent buried Samuel in a small cemetery near their home, under a tree that Samuel had loved as a boy. The villagers attended the funeral, unaware of Vincent's true nature. They only knew him as Samuel's devoted father, a man who never seemed to age. As the years passed, Vincent remained in the house they had shared. The laughter and warmth were gone, replaced by a silence that was almost unbearable. He wandered through the empty rooms, his heart heavy with grief. But even in his sorrow, Vincent found solace in the memories of Samuel's life. The echoes of his laughter, the warmth of his smile, they were treasures Vincent carried with him. Epilogue, A Father's Promise. One night, as Vincent sat by the fire, he heard a faint cry in the distance. It was weak and fragile, much like the one he had heard so many years ago. He stood, his heart stirring with the same feeling he had felt then. Perhaps it was time to begin again. Vincent stepped into the night, following the sound. He knew the pain of loss would come again, but he also knew the joy of love was worth it. For an immortal like him, the moments of connection, however fleeting, were what gave his eternal life meaning. Vocabulary summary. Immortal, living forever, not subject to death. Reclusive, avoiding the company of others, solitary. Frail, weak or delicate. Milestone, a significant stage or event in life. Bittersweet, both happy and sad at the same time. Purpose, a reason for doing something, a sense of meaning. Grief, deep sadness, especially after losing someone. Solace, comfort in a time of distress. Eternal, lasting forever, without end. Devoted, extremely loyal or dedicated.